So we'll go ahead and start with a hearing on Senate Bill 780.
Good morning.
Hopefully you had a nice drive in this morning.
I did. Actually, it wasn't bad compared to what it had been. So anyway, good morning, Mr. Chair. And for the record, Carla Eslinger, representing the 33rd Senatorial District. Okay, so you did say Senate Bill 780, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That is your bill, right?
Yes. Let's make sure. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 780. It's an act relating to student enrollment in the Missouri Course Access and Virtual School Program. If this bill sounds familiar to you, it's because this committee heard this bill and passed it out of committee last year as House Bill 827. That was sponsored by Representative Christopher Nelly and carried by Senator Koenig in the Senate. So just a little history. So in 22, the Missouri General Assembly truly agreed and finally passed House Bill 1552 that would provide other education opportunities for students while also making some reforms that aim to make this program run more efficiently. Senate Bill 780 really just focuses on two main parts or aspects of that current law: clarification on how virtual programs are funded, and clarifying that the determining process for enrolling a full-time virtual program belongs with the host district and not with the department. First, this legislation provides clarity on the funding process. You'll see these changes in Statute 161670, Section 2, Subsection 1. Anyway, this clarifies that the estimated attendance for purposes of calculating ADA of virtual school programs will be set at the host district's prior year attendance, and that the allocations will be in monthly state allocation. I think it's important to note that students virtual programs are required to, students in virtual programs are required to disenroll students who are not engaging with the programs, and virtual programs will not receive funding for students who are not engaged or not attending. Second, this legislation would remove department from the determining process for enrolling a full-time virtual student and gives the role to the host district. When the General Assembly made the changes for those processes within that previous piece of legislation, House Bill 1552, DESE went through a rulemaking process, and eventually those rules were actually thrown out by the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules because they found them to be overly burdensome and confusing. So this change would have the host district be responsible for the enrollment process, with the requirements set forth here in statute for the host district to follow. And you can find those specific requirements on page 7 and page 8 of Senate Bill 780. So like many of you have heard me say before, whether it's virtual, charter, public, or private, we need to make sure our schools are running as efficiently as possible, and we need to always put our students' needs first. I believe Senate Bill 780 to be a step in that direction in making the virtual education system established by statute to be better for Missouri students. I know we have several stakeholder groups and expert witnesses here today that would also help explain anything that I may have missed. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, anybody testify in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We'd like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 780. We would encourage the committee to also move this bill out as you all did last session. Just real quickly, with this situation with virtual education has accumulated over the years, and we have several statutes. We think that Senate Bill 780 does a good job of further clarifying between statutes that relate to course access, full-time virtual students, and in another statute that relates to when districts have virtual programs for their own students. And so right now there seems to be a little bit of unclarity in the language and how to interpret what was done 2 years ago. We think this bill does a great job of further clarifying so that those three parts are clearly separate and they operate as they were intended to. Happy to answer any questions either now or offline if the committee may have them.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in support? Senate Bill 780.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brent Tempill here on behalf of Pearson/Connections Academy. We are a virtual provider in the state. We partner with Sturgeon Public Schools. I can't add anything more to this. This bill is identical to the version that you filed, Mr. Chairman, and so for that we want to go on record in support of the bill. It purely is a technical cleanup to allow the streamlining of these kids into a virtual setting.
Any other questions for this witness? See none. Anybody else testify in support Senate Bill 780?
Kate Casas, registered lobbyist on behalf of Excel. Just want to go on record in support for all the same reasons mentioned before.
All right. Seeing no questions. Anybody else testify in support Senate Bill 780? Anybody testify in opposition to Senate Bill 780? Anybody to testify for informational purposes only on Senate Bill 780? All right. Seeing none.
Thank you. I have no other statements. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 780. We will now move to Senate Bill 902.
This one, it won't go off. This mic is staying live. Just so you know.
Senator, did you forget? I was going to say. If it was black, I might have taken you up on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Senator Nick Schroer from Missouri's 2nd District, presenting Senate Bill 902, which, as you can tell, is a comprehensive reform on education. Given the glaring flaws in our public education system seen since the pandemic and our most recent statewide testing for the past 2 years, it is clear that an overhaul of our education system is needed. Senate Bill 902 includes many reforms that have passed one or both of these chambers in the past several years. These reforms include increasing the flexibility and removal of specific restrictions related to the ESAs. This will essentially allow for more support in students with a wider range of educational options. Performance-based school district accountability measures. I know certain think tanks have applied different grading systems to our schools and our failing schools, allowing parents to make an educated decision. So this would fall in line with that goal of applying grades just like our students get to our schools, and allow for the board to reach out to them and try to get them the resources that they need for the failing schools. And again, some of these topics have been amended several different times over the years, and I'm willing to work with this committee to find out what the right approach is to address the failing schools in our areas while still giving transparency to the parents. School safety assessments. I know we've had many different bills. Some of them have passed over the past several years regarding the safety of our schools, the students, and all employees therein. So this would require a teaming up with local law enforcement and local public safety officials to keep our kids safe. And it also requires further collaboration with local public officials and regular assessments and evaluations. Inclusion of homeschool students with the flex schooling has been a bill I think Senator Brown had last year and this year. I know there was some concern within the homeschooling community that this could open up the walls and allow government to infringe upon their rights and their decisions to homeschool. So if and when that piece ever makes it to the floor, there will be explicit language that a wall will be put between the government and any homeschooling parents, families, while still giving the ability for certain kids, if they choose to take part in sports teams. Parents' Bill of Rights. Mr. Chairman, I think you've had a Parents' Bill of Rights that we could be voting on. I think this is very similar. It's a non-exhaustive list of the powers that parents have, so it's not encompassing every single right while clarifying the rights that I think common sense dictates parents do have over the education and upbringing of their kids. Curriculum transparency within DESE for all districts to empower parents to make the right decisions for their children if they choose to stay in the government school system model of education. Modification of the student attendance laws. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Supreme Court upheld a state law requiring local school attendance after 2 Lebanon, Missouri parents were sentenced to jail as their kids missed a handful of days over a year. This would still allow for the parents to be liable in specific situations, but clarifies some of the safeguards related to excused and non-excused absences. This would also promote regular school attendance, getting more local involvement with the parents, with the superintendents, with the teachers, and provides clarity on those unexcused and excused absences as the court was concentrating on declarations of intent to homeschool. It would repeal provisions mandating parents to submit declarations of homeschool to the recorder of deeds. And last but not least, non-compelling or teaching of instruction that individuals of any race, ethnicity, color, or national origin are inherently superior or inferior. This is similar to the bill that we had, I think the first education bill out of the Senate last year. I believe it mirrors your language therein. There is one other concern that has been brought to my attention. As you're well aware, in our time in the House or the Senate, when we craft this legislation, we always give it to the departments to enact the rules. So I'm hoping that we can use this time, and I know this is a hefty overhaul of education. We can use this time this year to craft those rules ourselves. We've seen over the past couple months with the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that some of these bureaucrats, these boards, commissions are usurping our power. They're acting as a fourth branch of government, or they're not enacting the laws that we put in place. So I think clearly if we can address that by not giving the rule-making authority to DESE and take that within our own power and try to create these rules, it may satisfy a lot of the issues that people have that they may testify today. But with that, I will close, and I will say that I have to be upstairs in another hearing at around 12.
All right. Anybody testify in support of Senate Bill 902? Anybody to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 902?
Good morning, Mr. Committee Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ryan Meredith. I'm traveling here with 3 other families, and you may hear from these students here in a little bit. Students, if you want to kind of wave at them, they'll know what I'm talking about in just a little bit. So we find ourselves in a very strange position this morning because in the past 7 years, our families have been advocating for homeschool access to extracurricular activities. And so this bill is very similar to what Senator Brown ended with last year. But the first bill that he introduced was only a page and a half, contained none of the flex language, and Senator Schroer, as you mentioned, there are some major concerns about this flex designation that's been introduced. And that's what we're here opposing, basically, is this flex designation. We're in a very strange position to be opposing a bill that might provide us access that we've been advocating for a number of years. But this is really the heart of it, is that we have been very concerned about introducing a new category that we're going to fall into that is basically conjoined to families that are accepting Mo Scholars money, which, as you mentioned, comes with lots of rules and oversight. And as I understand it from the bill summary, there's only a very paper-thin margin that's separating students that are not taking money but still participating in flex language from those oversights and rules and regulations. So we're very concerned. We don't feel like a second category for families like ours is necessary. We feel like there's a different way to go about this. And we're also very concerned about joining our specific part of this bill, our goal, our issue, in the midst of all this other stuff we feel doesn't belong a part of. It doesn't belong a part of school choice. It doesn't belong as a part of this other stuff. And we keep finding ourselves gaining new opponents to our specific desire when we keep joining it with other issues. So we're asking this committee to consider and urging you to consider separating that into letting us do that into a different bill. And to basically kill this second designation that our families would fall into. So you're going to hear students that come behind me. They're going to share their story and their desire and the reason why all families across Missouri should get access to extracurriculars through their local school district. So that's what they're mostly going to be speaking about. But again, we find ourselves in a very awkward position, a very painful position in opposing this specific part of the bill. But that is our position, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit perplexed by your position of wanting to participate at the public school, but then also opposition to segmenting homeschoolers off or creating that protection or that barrier between those two groups of people. Because I feel like you should either be in one camp or the other. Like, no one should ever take government resources, because by sending your child to do sports at a public school, you're definitely accepting some kind of governmental resource. So is there not a threat of that intrusion into that private school by accepting that?
Not in my opinion. Other states have figured this out without creating a second category for students to be able to participate in these type of activities.
But wouldn't that second category at least create a barrier or some for some homeschoolers who might thought that intrusion might happen? Wouldn't that create an extra level of protection?
I mean, you could also say it creates another opportunity for more oversight into that specific category. The statute we feel is pretty good right now. This would open up and edit that statute, creating more categories for homeschool families. We prefer just to remain in the current statute, which we feel is protection enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely opposition to that. You realize that from other homeschoolers who think that by allowing those homeschoolers to do those sports activities, that is inviting government intrusion.
Yeah, I understand there's opposition to that, and we're not of the unified opinion, obviously, in the homeschool community.
Right. Senator Bratton.
Well, I guess I'm perplexed as well, because I mean, for years we've watched this and wanted this to come to fruition without the flex. What Senator Koenig kind of worked to try to come up with a compromise. So I am confused because there was a huge sect of the homeschool groups that actually was killing the legislation for these past several years. So I guess what's the solution then? Because the homeschool groups are coming to certain ones are coming to actually advocate to kill what the original one-page leaflet was.
Yeah, I'm only aware of one specific group that was ever in opposition to that.
But those were the groups that were actually killing the bill from even moving forward.
One specific group. I don't know of multiple groups that were in favor of that. And in fact, we've got, as I understand it, we've got FHE, HSLDA, we've got our specific group and other groups lined up behind just simple homeschool access without the second category. I'm only ever aware of one group that's ever advocated for that, although they're very vocal. But we're not in unison with them, obviously, and we feel like it's unnecessary and also dangerous for our families that do end up participating to get a separate label that then can, who knows what happens down the road. There's lots of other things that be heaped on that second category, and now a lot of our protections are removed that we currently enjoy being categorized as homeschool students.
Well, I caution losing the vision of the forest in the trees, and I think that's kind of what's happening now. We're testifying against a bill that could have potentially massaged that. What that advocacy is trying to play sports in a public school, but have that level of separation. And I think it does. The flex aspect does create that buffer zone. So I just. If we're wanting to get this done.
But the buffer zone is respectfully, the buffer zone is our families. Like if there's regulation that's going to come into the equation, it's going to fall on our families specifically that still want to participate. So now, if there's a bunch of regulation and oversight that is unwarranted and unwanted, it's going to fall on these flex students. And then the only repercussion or the only remedy that we have is just to withdraw and again be shut out from participation. So that's what we are concerned about, if I'm making myself clear.
Yep.
The buffer zone is our families that are participating, and we don't prefer to be the buffer zone. We want to be just protected by the statute as it is currently today.
And I agree with that, and I totally, I'm on the side of making this come to fruition. It just, it's, one of those, it's a difficult thing to try to get to work out.
Yeah.
So
I don't envy your position.
how do you get the
so-
cake and eat it too, to where you have the capability to have full access to these activities, yet not have interference whatsoever? I mean, that is I guess the monumental hurdle we're trying to overcome here. So
Yeah,
but
I
I understand the one desire to have that protection. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You do, all right, so getting back to the flex language, you do realize like a new law would have to be passed in order to put any regulation on those flex schools.
Say again.
A new law would have to be passed in order to create new regulations for those students who are participating.
So as Senator Schroer was saying earlier, as it happened, as I understand with the Missouri Scholars Program, is there was a lot of gray area that then the Department of Education wrote in lots of rules and oversight that was not included in the law. So are you saying that you all would make this clear enough that they wouldn't be able to take this law and then put some additional rules on it when they administer it?
If there's some kind of flaw in the language, but I don't see. The statutes are identical, nearly. So it doesn't allow the department to come in and create new regulations on that flex school. You would have to pass a new law that would allow for those.
Right. Or it would,
Which honestly anybody can do at any point in time.
you're
Like
right.
there's
Or
not.
it could happen during perfection from here on out. That language could change at any point in the process, right? It could be changed, adapted. Those sentences could be removed that currently provide that buffer.
All right.
And-
What
and now
about
the
what about what about section 167.071, which allows a school board to appoint something similar to a deputy sheriff to go and investigate homeschoolers? That's that in this law, we're deleting that from statute.
Right, which is good. So we would.
So wouldn't that provide better protections than, like, overall better statutes for homeschoolers than not passing the bill?
I mean, that part of it is great, but why do we need a
So it's better-
But why do we need a second category?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying wouldn't that provide better protections, getting rid of that, even if there is a second category, knowing that you would have to pass a new law?
I can see your point.
I mean, because to me, personally, I believe that's a complete violation. Like, that statute that's in place is a complete violation of parents' rights to be able to upbring their own children, and government intrusion into homeschooling.
Right. Yeah, I understand your point.
Yeah. Further questions for this witness? Seeing none,
Thank you.
we're going to pause and take roll.
Chairman Koenig,
Here.
Vice Chair Bratton. Senators Arthur, Beck, Gannon, Hoskins, Razor, Schroer, Trent.
All right, we've established a quorum. We will now further opposition on Senate Bill 902.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, thank you for hearing my testimony today. My name is Jonah Speaker. I'm a 17-year-old homeschool senior. I'm up here today testifying in opposition just because, as the senator has already said, that we are worried about governmental overreach into homeschool families, and he already said he was coming up with a solution for that, so I look forward to seeing what language is presented to separate us and to fix these concerns. But I'm specifically here testifying that I do believe that homeschool students should have access to extracurricular activities at their local public school. That's been the issue that I've been up here and I've testified for 7 years now, and I am very passionate about it. So that's specifically what I'm up here testifying for. I'm for homeschoolers having access to extracurriculars through their local public school. I just want to make sure that homeschoolers aren't getting governmental overreach in that process. So you may be wondering what the problem with the current system for homeschoolers participating is. Under the current Missouri State High School Activities Association policy, a homeschool student must enroll in 2 classes a day at their local public school in order to participate. However, individual school districts can and are more restrictive as it stands now. This causes an inconsistency across the state. Some school districts are allowed to participate, and others in other school districts are completely banned. Since elementary school, this issue was a very personal one to me. As a second grader, I attended my local public school, but I was a very energetic kid who had trouble sitting still for long periods of time. This prompted my parents to homeschool me. During my years of education at home, I have transformed from the kid who could not sit still to the studious high school senior speaking before you today. When I began my education at home, I was still able to participate in athletics alongside my public school peers through city leagues. However, that all changed when I reached 7th grade, where I was cut off from the athletic community that I had had for years. During this time, my family and I sought to bring about change at our local high school level so I could participate when I was a high schooler. At the time, my school district in Webb City had a complete ban on homeschool participation. During the summer before my freshman year, they reevaluated their policy and reduced the requirement to 4 classes a day, which was twice the MISHA standard. After participating in athletics at Webb City for a year, I had reached a breaking point. Due to my rigorous homeschool curriculum, I struggled with the extra workload of the public school classes. Luckily, after informing the athletic director of my predicament, the school board reduced their policy to the MISHA standard. I'm extremely blessed to live in a district that was willing to work with me through the process, and due to their concessions on this issue, I was able to participate in high-caliber athletics all 4 years of my high school. I was able to become a 3-sport letterman and had the opportunity to become state champion. I was able to receive postseason honors for my football accolades. However, no honor could be as close to the honor of being elected team captain by my team. After the season, my coaches voted to give me the Cardinal Award, which is given to athletes that the coaching staff deems as the epitome of the program. This meant a lot to me as a homeschooled student who had came in to play sports alongside my public school peers. Because I received an exceptional education at home and had stellar athletic opportunities at my local public school, I found a prominent college where I am continuing my academic and athletic career. My experience at Webb City is one that I will never forget, with memories that will last me a lifetime, and it breaks my heart that others across the state will not be given the same opportunity. Now's the time to change that. Missouri's the show me state. I urge you guys to vote for legislation that would allow homeschoolers to participate in extracurriculars at their local public school. And as I've already stated, our specific concern with this legislation is that we don't want government to overreach into homeschool families. So we're here supporting homeschool access. We just don't want a bunch of strings attached.
All right, questions for this witness? All right, seeing none, we are going to pause again and go to, I'll make a motion to go into executive session. Been second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. I'll make a motion to bring up Senate Bill 814. It's been second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? This was Senator Carter's bill that we heard last week, dealing with statewide assessment, school accountability. Discussion? Yes.
So I appreciate the intent of this bill and what the author is trying to do. I'm not going to oppose the bill today to let the process continue to work, but I do think that the bill in its current form it probably needs some additional work, and so I look forward to having that discussion as it continues to move through the process.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to pass Senate Bill 814. Been seconded.
Chairman Koenig,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bratton, Senators Arthur, Beck, Gannon, Hoskins, Razor, Schroer, Trent.
All right, you have due passed Senate Bill 814. I'll make a motion to bring up Senate Bill 766. This is Thompson Rehder's bill. There is a substitute that was distributed. I believe basically just added section 3. So on the second page of the bill, it just adds some liability protections for private schools who disclose any information related to their employees. Discussion? All right, I'll make a motion to bring up the sub. Been second. All those in favor say aye. All right, discussion on the sub. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adopt Senate Committee substitute. It's been second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. I'll make a motion to do pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 766. Been seconded.
Chairman Koenig,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bratton, Senators Arthur, Beck, Gannon, Hoskins, Razor, Schroer, Trent.
All right, you have due pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 766. I'll make a motion to bring up Senate Bill 728. Been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? This is the Parents' Bill of Rights. We do have a substitute on this. I'll make a motion to bring up the substitute. Been second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The substitute has some provision that we added related to bathrooms. I think the senator from St. Charles, I believe he had a bill on that, if you want to explain what's in it.
Yeah, so in St. Charles County, one of the big issues going on right now is how they're going to handle the issues of the bathroom and locker room policy. I know some states have done it district by district, school by school. Some of the schools in St. Charles County are asking for us to take this up and debate this so we can get this passed So it's a statewide issue that your biological sex matches which locker room and which bathroom you're going into. I know several of the school districts in St. Charles County have addressed it, but there is still a need, and I believe that there's bills in the House and several others in the Senate that are doing this.
Discussion? Yes. All right.
This amendment just strikes that second section of the bill and goes back to your original Parents' Bill of Rights bill.
The whole section or just the section that was added?
The entire section.
Entire section. All right. Discussion on the amendment. All right, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No. The noes have it. Yeah, I'll let you do that. There's been a roll call requested, so call the roll.
Chairman Koenig,
No.
Vice Chair Braden. Senators Arthur. Beck.
Aye.
Gannon. Hoskins. Razor.
Aye.
Schroer.
No.
Trent.
All right, you have failed to adopt the amendment. I'll make a motion. Yep.
I have an amendment.
All right.
This next amendment that's going around provides that if a school official notifies a parent of a discussion with a student regarding certain topics specified in the Act, that school official shall also notify the Children's Division of the Department of Social Services that such student may be at risk of becoming homeless. I think we all can agree that we don't want children to be homeless, and I think we can all agree that in my district, 148, I believe it was, children needing a home because of parents finding out this news might suffice in letting the Children's Division know that they're about to have a homeless child on their hands or a high likelihood thereof. So I hope we can take care of kids with this amendment.
Discussion on the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add an amendment to the amendment. That would also add that they would be notified in case of that there would be child abuse after this would be, so not only homeless, but child abuse added to this amendment.
All right, do you have that? Do you have it in writing or? Yep.
I would like after becoming homeless and subject to child abuse, simply at the end of it.
Yeah, so Senator Razor, so basically anytime that this discussion happens, then the department would be notified. Is that what your amendment does?
Correct. The parents are going to be notified, the department needs to be notified that they may have a homeless child or an abused child on their hands.
And Senator Beck, could you explain your amendment to the amendment again?
It's simply would add child abuse. It just says becoming homeless, but this would just add child abuse into the factor. These are two things we're trying to prevent.
Senator Bratton.
Discussion. If I'm not mistaken, doesn't the current existing law of mandated reporter already exist if they believe there's abuse
That is correct.
or anything already going on in law? So this is just redundancy in law. I mean, so it already exists if a school official feels there's abuse, sexual, whatever already exists in law under our current system of law. So
Yeah, I would concur with that. That if there is a suspicion of abuse and neglect, and it is illegal to throw your child out on the street. I mean, I believe that's already illegal. Is that not the case?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I agree, except members of this committee seem to think that that would not happen, that parents always know best in every circumstance. So there may be teachers who think the same way, and so therefore wouldn't notify the proper officials. So this is just going to require them to do the right thing.
Yeah. Senator
Mr.
Bratton?
Chair, I would also like to add to that, you put a time limit of 24 hours. How is DSS going to know if this person would be subject to? So you're kicking a timeline into forcing somebody to tell something that possibly something would happen, right? So this is not going to be able to act. We know how things are. DSS is down half their employees. This would give some sort of protection to them because you're going to be instigating this going forward. So this is why I think it's a very good amendment.
All right, I'm just Senator Bratton.
I would disagree that it is a good amendment because this is an indictment of every single parent that would be notified, and you're saying that they're guilty before being proven, and instead of being innocent until proven guilty or any sort of accusatory anything coming before them or burden of proof. So this is, the antithesis of how the process is supposed to work.
You want to wait until the child is abused before
Well, that's
we
the
do
current
anything?
system. We don't go around and
we
we
know
don't
how many
indict
kids
every
are-
parent on the entire state of Missouri and have an investigation of every single state Missouri citizen just in hopes that we catch them doing something wrong.
So you're going to create a law that is going to put a certain unacceptably large percentage of children at
It's actually a
risk.
very, very
It's-
small portion of
It's-
children.
actually,
But
it is
regardless,
not a very small portion of children.
it is a very small
You know-
portion of children in the grand scheme of things. But to indict all parents being notified, whether a school official is having talks of sexuality to students, I disagree that this is good policy. For that, I'll be voting no.
And that's fine. I was just
Senator-
curious, Senator, so you're okay with?
We're going to Senator Gannon.
Mr. Chairman, could you clarify something right now? Does the school counselor notify DSS?
So if there's a suspicion of abuse, then they're a mandated reporter, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of adopting? Oh, yeah. Mhm. Sure.
I don't, I'm sorry, I don't know that I have the bill in front of me. If the teacher overhears a student say, or even a student comes up to a teacher and says, and they're heteronormative, and they say, it's a boy saying, I like this girl, I'm going to ask her to go to the dance. Is that a conversation that then the teacher needs to have with the parent, notifying them of that?
Yeah, I mean,
Of that
I'm happy to make
heterosexual-
I'm happy to make some clarifying.
How would you
know,
clarify?
well, specifically, what we don't want is we don't want the teacher kind of indoctrinating the child to make one decision or the other, or to specifically change names or pronouns.
But it's about the parental notification
Correct.
of the child identifying as homosexual or heterosexual. It's the parental notification. And are you suggesting that it would only be appropriate in cases where the student is expressing that he or she or they is homosexual, that
No,
becomes
like so.
an
Like
issue?
my intent is for the teacher to be neutral, not pushing an agenda in any direction.
Well, so I think, and
And-
I know
and like I
this is
said,
a
if we-
longer conversation, but it really
I'm-
presumes
yeah,
a
I'm-
lot of things about a teacher, and again, seems to indict every teacher that he or she is having inappropriate conversations with students, trying to impose some sort of
Well, I mean, I think we've seen evidence that
but I would
there
also
has
say,
been.
like the senator said before, what you're suggesting is that they're groomers, and that's completely
That's not necessarily what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that there's been instances where actual names were changed that, in the classroom, which were not their name that they were given.
well. There are a lot of students who go by names that are not their given names. They go by nicknames. They go by
Yeah, and all right, so even with that, for instance, my oldest son, his name is Jeremiah, and there are teachers that are using names other than Jeremiah, and I honestly don't like that either.
Well, I just think it puts a lot of burden on teachers to,
yeah,
based on everything that for which they are responsible throughout the course of the day, to then notify parents on.
I mean, the statute does say knowingly, so they have to be knowingly violating the statute.
Well, I think we could have solved all of this issue by just taking that section out and imposing in state law what I think are really reasonable parental rights. But all of this other stuff, I think is unnecessary and creates all kinds of problems for teachers, parents, and most importantly, students. Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment to the amendment. All those in favor of adopting the amendment 1 to amendment 2, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The noes have it.
I request a roll call vote, Mr. Chairman.
I've already called it. You have to call it before.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a roll call vote on the underlying amendment.
All right. There's been a roll call suggested on Amendment 2. Discussion on Amendment 2.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I asked for, after you decided to call it for the yays, you didn't say the yays may have it. That's what our policy, or that's what our rules kind of state, that you believe that the yays have it, or the ayes have it.
Well,
and that was never stated. You just said the ayes have it right off the bat. So I think in general, I'm trying to be respectful here, that I should have the right to call a roll call vote on the amendment we just did.
Yeah. Well, we'll have an amendment on this one here.
But the
We'll
amendment
have
that
a
I
roll
just
call.
called,
All those in favor of adopting Amendment 2? Yeah, we're doing a roll call.
On Amendment 2, Chairman Koenig,
No?
Vice Chair Bratton, Senators Arthur, Beck, Gannon, Hoskins, Razor, Schroer, Trent.
All right, you have failed to adopt Amendment 2. Discussion on the bill? Yep.
I want to go
Senator
back to
Rehder.
something that the Senator was saying just a second ago. So the teacher overhears, or a student comes to them and says, I think I may be LGBT. That teacher, if this passes, will then be required by law to call their parents and tell them within 24 hours. If that's the law, and I'm sure it says, and I apologize, I don't have it right in front of me, I'm sure it says sexual orientation or gender identity, then any student, just like Senator Arthur said, any student that comes and says, a boy says, I want to take this girl on to the dance, they have to call. If that's not the case, then what you're saying in your bill is you only call if the student's like me.
Yeah, like I said before.
So which is it? Which is it? Are you going to make an amendment that clarifies that only if the person's like me does the parent need to know?
No, like I said, I'd be happy to work further with this on. I'm sure that we'll come up with some language, some clarifying language to clarify that. But the intention is to make it so that way the teacher's not pushing an agenda either way.
But you're pushing an agenda if you're only saying if the kid's gay, you got to call.
I don't
If they're
think the language necessarily says
if they're
that.
straight, then they have to call either way because you have a sexual orientation.
Correct.
Yeah. So if that's what you're saying, they have to call either way.
Correct.
All right, that's a whole lot of calling by the teachers.
Yeah. Discussion, Senator Bratton.
Well, I think we're trying to mix, apples and oranges here. This has nothing to do with your sexual orientation. It has to do with changing the names of the student to a separate sex. So your sexual inclination is not a part of that discussion. So to say it's like you haven't changed your name, Senator, and nobody's having a school official change your name. So I think we're trying to muddy the water here to make it a bigger issue than it is. It's a school that's knowingly going and helping and changing a child's name. As I had to deal with a student in a family that was with the school district that I represent. Lee Summit High School was doing it with a student, changed the girl's name to a boy's name, and was hiding it and facilitating it behind, had secret email addresses. That's exactly what this is addressing, not your sexual inclination. And to say that a teacher should have those sorts of conversations, I think, is beyond the scope of a teacher. So that's my deal, and I think the water is being muddied in this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't read into this statute that if a teacher overhears a conversation that they would have to necessarily notify. If it's two students that are talking, it specifically talks about a student who approaches the teacher asking them to change their pronouns, asking to have their name changed. And so if they overhear a conversation, I don't believe there's any parental notification that would be necessary.
If I may, I think the issue is that we're trying to legislate basically relationships between students and teachers. And that's a hard thing to do because while all teachers are trying to help students with academic achievement, often the way that you can help students feel invested is by showing them that you care about them personally. I mean, the same way that if we want to get anything done, it helps to have positive relationships. And I think we've seen how having no relationships can make it more difficult to get anything done, right? So my point is, without teachers indoctrinating students, there are still conversations about students' personal lives, who they like, who they want to take to the dance, how they're feeling at that moment. Those are conversations that happen, and by putting in statute requirements of the teachers to notify parents in conversations where I think we should allow them a little discretion to make the right call, it creates all sorts of additional problems.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. All right, I'll make a motion. All right, I'll make a motion to adopt committee Senate substitute for Senate Bill 728. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Yes. All right. We have a roll call that's been requested.
To adopt the substitute.
Yes.
Chairman Koenig.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bratton. Senators Arthur. Beck. Gannon. Hoskins. Razor. Schroer. Trent.
You have adopted the substitute. I'll make a motion to do pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 728. It's been seconded.
Chairman Koenig.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bratton. Senators Arthur. Beck. Gannon. Hoskins. Razor. Schroer. Trent.
You have due passed Senate Bill 728. I'll make a motion to go out of executive session. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. The ayes have it, appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We will now continue with opposition to Senate Bill 902.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Lydia Meredith, and I am a 16-year-old homeschool student from Joplin, Missouri. I'm here today to speak about the portion of this bill that addresses flex students, specifically access to extracurriculars. So the language in this portion, as you know, mirrors Senate Bill 819. So I thought I would share a bit about my personal story to why I've come to testify, not only today, but for the past 3 years. So for many of my life, I participated in a competitive club swim team. And however, once I reached high school, I had to quit because of my limited opportunities. I left my friends, coach, and all the progress that I made. At that time, and until very recently, my school district did not allow homeschool participation of any kind. Only after this fall, after an extensive process of meeting with school board members, lobbying for policy change, and help from our state senator, was change able to be made. My family was in a very privileged opportunity to be able to do this. Not everyone has the resources, time, or connections to make those policy changes. And no one should have to fight for a right that should be theirs in the first place anyways. So this is an example of why we do need state change at the state level. So the reason I am not testifying in favor of this bill, as I have done for the past 3 years, or in favor of this specific cause of homeschool access to extracurriculars, is because of the flex language attached to allowing homeschoolers access to extracurriculars. So this flex language has seen much more negative pushback than any other version of this homeschool bill in the past, and it has also produced much more confusion. I remember many representatives and senators I spoke to last year that supported homeschool access being ultimately confused about the additional language added to it, which is very complicated, and many voted no on this bill because of their doubts of this language being beneficial. So what I'm testifying here in favor of is a clean language bill that simply allows homeschoolers access to extracurriculars through their local public schools, with one class required, which is what we originally had before this language was added. So sports and extracurriculars provide students with critical life lessons and just general life skills. And every year this bill is not passed is another year that we are complicit in denying key educational experiences to students. So if extracurriculars are beneficial for some students, then they are beneficial for all students. Therefore, all students should have access to extracurriculars. Thank you for listening to my testimony, as well as your sacrifice for the people of Missouri. Please support homeschool access to extracurriculars. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition? Senate Bill 902.
Hello, good morning. Gail Griswold, President of Camden School District, School Board of Education, excuse me, and a registered lobbyist for Armorvine LLC. First and foremost, I think having 88 pages of a bill is irresponsible, and we really need to rein in omnibus bills. I wish that rule would have passed just for, preventing things like this from hitting the floor. That being said, I'm just going to go into the bill itself. It's page 3, lines 43 to 46, changing from the SAT to the per pupil for that district. What is the fiscal implications? I don't know if there's a fiscal note that has even been discussed. I really question expanding our budget, which is going to be in a crisis this year. It was going to be fighting for the dollars as the ARPA money runs out. And also just a reminder that the state adequacy target in any language isn't real money in the bank anywhere. I see that very often. That's just a part of a formula that then spits out a number at the end. It's not actually, like my school doesn't get $6,700 per student. That's just a number. So also line 38, incentivize for LEAs. How are you going to be incentivizing for growth and performance? What does that even mean? Like there's I mean, gifts, money, I mean, that's just, I don't know, it seems like a Willy Wonka concept. So then moving on, college and career readiness and workforce training. I know that's in our current standards and different things that we have to adopt from ESSA. I'd just like to remind everyone that education is not workforce training. C.S. Lewis really said it well, and I probably will misquote him, but that when education becomes training, a civilization dies. So anything that has college and career readiness and workforce training really gets away from the intention of education. Next, page 12, line 34, International Baccalaureate Program. That is a UNESCO program. I've asked this committee many times not to put UNESCO programs from the United Nations, the UN, into any language in law. It's currently in the mini ESA. My school does have the IB program. We are phasing it out for many reasons, but I think anything that has UNESCO in it needs to be removed, absolutely. Page 15, line 31, and you let me know a time. I didn't set a timer, sir. Line 31 to 37 takes away local control. We have a new way of assessing schools now, A through F, like a restaurant rating. I think that when we're looking at accreditation and assessment, I think SB814 does a better job of giving flexibility to accreditation and for local schools to be able to respond better. So I would definitely say that A through F needs to go. And that kind of leads into accountability versus just how you're looking at accountability and where it blends into accreditation. Page, I don't think I have it written down, but when we're talking about accountability, Senator Schroer is not here, but he asked last time I testified about the different states that have moved into a different accreditation model. New Hampshire is really a great one for an example. It's now currently 6th in the country and is part of a different accreditation model. And as far as the homeschoolers go, my community came to me as the no, thank you. The Camden School Board of Education, we were following, we were doing requiring 6 classes. And I didn't even know, and the homeschoolers in our community came and said, can you do the minimum of the MISHA requirements, which is the 2 classes? And so I didn't even know that this was a thing. Our community came to us, we changed it immediately and went to the minimum. I would say that MISHA is a tyrant. They need to be reined in. They tried to force COVID health standards on our schools in order for us to even participate in state and regionals that went out of their authority and out of the local health authority. And I have those emails I can give to you that really scared the rural communities that were really afraid to ruin anything that had to do with their sports. Sports is so important, and so that's really scary. So I would like for our community to not have to require the 2 classes. So right now that's a MISHA thing. They're an NGO. They're not in law. I think if you want to fix this problem that a lot of people are talking in the room, you look at just, they're doing it for eligibility. They're doing it for eligibility, to have a standard across. That's all they're really doing it. They're not doing it.
You are going on 5 minutes.
Okay. So I think our school would love our homeschoolers to play sports. And so what that looks like without creating an extra category. So thank you, and if you have any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition? Can I get a show of hands of who still wants to testify?
I'll be very quick. Sharon Gowie-Jones here on behalf of the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP and Promo. I've also brought a form from Autophagian, who had to step to a House hearing against the bill on behalf of Missouri NEA. We are continuing to oppose the curriculum bans as well as some portions of the Parents' Bill of Rights. We already have a Parents' Bill of Rights in law that most of this language would be redundant to, but specifically the curriculum ban is problematic. Anytime we start trying to micromanage teachers in a classroom that is built for all children, we run into a situation where it's going to be impossible to run that classroom. Parents have the option to homeschool. Parents have the option to co-op. If they are concerned about the details of their children's education, those options are existing currently. So just would like to avoid curriculum bans. That's it.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition?
Lisa Panett, Armorvine. I have like 2 pages, but I'm going to dwindle it down of concerns with this bill. On page 7, it says that any school that complies with all such policies shall be classified as accredited. So charters accreditation are based on their financial solvency, but public schools are based on grades. That report card that you reference is based this way. DESE is referenced 23 times in this bill, where it gets new authority 23 times. So we say that DESE is the problem, and then we hand them over new authority 23 times. The department shall promulgate rules developing the methodology for local educations to earn each letter grade. That's because this is convoluted and it's not fair. The Students' Bill of Rights, there's tons of problems in here. It talks about on page 41 to see the minor child statewide standardized test results. The key, the results, page 41. So this is not the test, and you're enshrining the ability for parents to not be able to see the proprietary test that the children are receiving. And for years, parents and teachers have been able to see a completed test when we had books and pencils and paper. So why now, with the Chromebooks, are none of the parents, superintendents, et cetera, able to see these tests? The right way to actually make something that was good here would be to not allow proprietary tests that no one can see, and enter into memorandums of understanding that are contracts that these schools are entering into and why they're not able to see them. Let's see. When it talks about page 44, it's once again silly because you're talking about they're not going to require a non-disclosure to make copies of curricula. Again, how do they make copies? Everything's on Chromebooks now. So your definition of abuse and neglect on page 45 is broad, and it could be used to take children away from their parents if they don't want Sally to become Steve. The proprietary information on 45 with FERPA is meaningless because Duncan gutted FERPA and now allows contractors to receive all their personally identifiable information. I talked with an intellectual property attorney in DC about this last portion on page 48, starting at line 11, and this could be weaponized against good teachers trying to say what's on those tests. So this is a DC intellectual property attorney. This is what he does for a living, and he's saying they can be used against good teachers if they showed what is on the test because they're concerned. And then page 60, less than 5 unexcused absences, give them a path to start taking a child from a loving parent. So those are the biggest highlights. Again, I have 2 full pages, and I just dwindled it down to a few points.
Discussion or questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll be very brief. My name is Arnie C. Acdinov, State Public Advocate, and I am certainly opposed to this bill. This is bad policy, way too many subjects. This bill is way over the top. As I sent to the bill sponsor in an email, this bill 902 stinks to hog heaven. It's a bait and switch of methods trying to fool people into passing this bill. And it's finally that I need to say to the Senate, give me a break on the negative hate towards public education and our 547 public school districts. When will the attacks on public education stop? We deserve better legislation, concise legislation, and single subject matters rather than concluding the issues and the bills into a huge omnibus bill that confuses Missourians, takes advantage of Missourians, violates our Constitution, and delivers bad education to our 547 school districts. For those reasons, I'm adamantly opposed to Senate Bill 902. I could be here for 2 hours talking about the bill's insufficiencies, negativism, and bad public policy and legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion or any questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition?
Chairman, committee members, my name is Joseph McGee. I'm in Bratton's district. My wife and I have 4 children. We've homeschooled for over 12 years. We've been also heavily involved in the homeschool community, especially in a leadership capacity, including assistant directors with FHE, leader and co-leader of Lee Summit Home Educators, and now we own our own homeschool coaching business. I am also in opposition to SB902, particularly the flex school language. I do believe that it would essentially create two classes of homeschoolers with muddled boundary lines, something I cannot have. And it opens the door to regulating all homeschoolers. Let me see. Much has already been said that I agree with. Let's see. I will ask that if legislators are absolutely determined to go with flex school, I would request that you keep homeschool statute completely left untouched, unreferenced, and that flex schools would have a new non-accredited private school designation with its own separate statutes. That's all I'll say for now. Thanks.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition? Please make sure all witnesses fill out a witness form.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is James F. Holderman III. I am State Director for Stand for Health Freedom. I am testifying on behalf of Stand for Health Freedom and my family. So, there's different components to this bill. The primary concern that I'm going to address, because the flex school issue has been discussed pretty thoroughly, is the issue of the language within the parents' Bill of Rights. So I am the son of the former chief judge in the Northern District of Illinois Federal Court. I am also, my wife and I were lead plaintiffs on a federal class action lawsuit against the Department of Children and Family Services in Illinois for violation of parental rights. So I'm fairly knowledgeable. I'm not an attorney, however. I'm fairly knowledgeable on parental rights under constitutional law, substantive due process. And I'm concerned about the inclusion of the strict scrutiny language within the parental Bill of Rights. I spoke to two attorneys on this, civil rights attorneys. One is a civil rights attorney, the other is an attorney that deals with parents' rights. And both felt that the language was too vague and felt that it was potentially problematic. So I reached out to 3 senators, including my own. I spoke with staff, and I will be having follow-up meetings. But specifically, when the bill goes to delineate the rights of parents, each time that right is asserted, we have to understand that corresponding to that is that right exists unless it is demonstrated that such an infringement is narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling government interest and that such interest could not be served by a less restrictive means. Most concerning for me with regard to the health freedom issues, and seeing as that our federal class action lawsuit dealt almost exclusively with health freedom issues, if not exclusively, is number 6, the right of parent to make healthcare decisions for such minor child. And frankly, a little bit under number 7. So I wanted to get a little more information as to what was the thought behind the bill, what organizations, if any, came forward to help encourage this bill or produce the language, and what was the intent that we're trying to achieve. Stand for Health Freedom stands strongly with parents. Parents' rights are, I'm not going to say for Stand for Health Freedom, but for me, nearly absolute. And there should be very limited avenues for which the state can come and interfere, and those are well delineated within federal law. My question is, when you place that kind of language within a state statute, have we opened the door to school officials or those working, I'll quote the language of the bill, on behalf of the school or under the authority of public school, have we opened up a very dangerous language where parents, in order to preserve their right, possibly under the Constitution, certainly under state law, will have to go have a judge help determine if there was a compelling interest, if in fact it was narrowly tailored, if it was the least restrictive means, and provide a fitness test. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in court, but I sure as heck will be if they go to infringe my right. Lastly, and I will just add this because I do want to keep it brief, the two things are, number one, I do not want to see the homeschool law changed. My children were both homeschooled last year in the state of Missouri. We complied with the statute as existing. I feel very comfortable that that is a reasonable position for the state to take. So that law should not be changed, and if there's going to be a change to create this flex school situation, then I do believe that that should be a completely new law, completely separate and apart from homeschool. And then I'm also concerned about flex schools' impact on private schools. Very lastly, and I appreciate the time, when you are talking to pediatricians that come to you, and they are members of the American Academy of Pediatrics, I want to point out their number one resolution in 2019, just so you know. The number one resolution in 2019 of the American Academy of Pediatrics was the elimination of religious exemptions to vaccinating children. Number one resolution of all the issues that children face in this country, the American Academy of Pediatrics said take away a parent's right to assert on the behalf of their child a religious objection. Update to 2024, the number one, or 2023, the number one resolution of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So when they're coming from you, this is what they're to be advocating for. Federal protections of gender-affirming care for both patients and their doctors. Further, they state the resolution calls for the Academy for gender-affirming care as a human right. Now, I only know of 2 industries right now that have got near total blanket immunity from lawsuits. That is the vaccine makers and the cellular phone industry. If they are pushing for federal protections, we need to keep a very close eye on that in the state of Missouri and ensure that we protect our parents' rights if there's an issue with the child with regard to, their feelings with regard to their gender. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait, you have nothing? Questions for this witness? Seeing none. All right, anybody else testify in opposition? Please make it brief. We have to. All right.
Members of the committee, Mike Lodewig, on behalf of the Missouri Council of School Administrators, will on record oppose the bill. Thank you.
Anybody else testify in opposition?
Good morning. Well, I guess good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Judah Meredith. I'm a 14-year-old homeschooled student, and I enjoy working out, cooking, and hanging out with my friends. I've been homeschooled my entire life, but alongside my normal homeschool routine, I take 2 classes at our local public school so I can play sports through the school. And until recently, me and my brother were unable to do this due to the school policy that banned homeschool students from participating in extracurricular activities. We found different alternatives to playing through the school. We found a few alternatives, but they weren't very good options. I competed in a competitive wrestling club through Webb City School for 4 years and played travel football for 2. But after this year, however, it would have become much harder to find ways to play sports because all the travel leagues and club leagues near us do not have teams for people beyond 8th grade. The ones that do are located in larger cities like St. Louis or Kansas City, and if we wished to play sports, we would have had to drive a couple hours to practice every day. The few clubs or leagues near us are almost never on the same competitive level as the school leagues. Through much effort, my dad managed to work with the school board of Joplin to change their policy before the school year began, and we were able to play sports through the school this year for the first time with a mission minimum of 2 classes. This year, I have enjoyed playing football and competing in the school wrestling season. I'm very thankful that I've had this opportunity to make new friends and develop my skills at sports. I think every student should have these opportunities, but many still do not. I'd like to ask your help in creating and passing a clean version of SB902 that focuses solely on granting homeschoolers access to extracurriculars while taking 1 class related at their local public school related to their extracurricular. Thank you for listening, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Seeing no questions, anybody else testify in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Michelson with the Missouri State Teachers Association. Go on record in opposition to the bill.
Anybody else testify in opposition?
Yes, good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Brant Shields with the Missouri School Board Association, just going on record in opposition to the bill.
Anybody else testify in opposition? Anybody testify for informational purposes only?
Yes, I'm Cheryl Schmidt with Families for Home Education, and I'm just testifying for informational purposes today. As you know, issues are covered in, there's many issues covered in the SB 902. One is the homeschool access to public activities. FHE is neutral on this portion of the bill as long as there's nothing that would infringe on other homeschools not participating in the programs. FHE did not ask for the flexible language, and since the two categories of homeschool families presents no harm in and of itself, FHE not presently opposed the concept. However, there has been much controversy on the homeschool community, in the homeschool community over the issue. Therefore, after careful consideration, we are not going to be supporting 902. And I have two other little. It's in the parental rights section. There's a couple of word changes that we would like to see, and I've attached this here, and I'm talking to the sponsor.
All right. Anybody else testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Or one more. All right, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, thank you for listening to my testimony this afternoon. My name is Shadrach Salazar, and I too am homeschooled. I've been homeschooled since 4th grade, and I'm now a senior in high school. The reason I'm testifying today is because I love the game of baseball. I love sports, and I believe that every high school student, homeschooled or not, should have the same opportunities. I love it enough to be here, and I have recently moved to Webb City, Missouri from San Diego, California. When my family planned our move, we had already realized that many districts do not allow homeschoolers to play sports at their local high school. So we purposely moved to Webb City because of this. It is a great opportunity, and I'm beyond thankful for it. As a baseball player, the high school season is crucial for college recruiting. The same opportunity should be given to other athletes regardless of the school district. I'm currently being recruited by several colleges right now and was hoping to sign early for early signing in November. However, given my situation as a homeschool student, a few schools are waiting to see my high school season, and without one, my future in college would likely suffer. This played a major role in our decision in moving to Webb City specifically. I'm thankful for the chance to show my ability this season through the platform of high school sports, but many do not even get this opportunity. Much talent gets overlooked because of this, and if homeschool students were given access to athletics, then it would give them the same advantage that other high school athletes receive. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else testify for informational purposes only? Please make sure you fill out a witness form. All right. Seeing none. All right. That concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 902, and we are adjourned.